Rise and shine, my mariposas, rise and shine. So, welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I was formerly known as Monica Life Coach, then Lighthouse, and then now the Red Flame Oracle, right? Why the Red Flame Oracle, you ask, is because of the fires I have walked through since the beginning of this summer. I have some things to talk about and some pearls of wisdom. You know, I'm telling you, being in these Florida areas where I see a lot of Gen Xers, people from the late 60s, 70s, 80s, if that's the age range. Anyway, people that are from my timeline, let's put it that way. From my timeline, the ones that, used to ride their freaking bikes all over the place and never come home until the street lights came on, right? Parents didn't have no way to get in contact with you. If something happened, you had to figure it out. So, but I've been through a lot of jobs. I've been through a lot of states that I lived in because I'm the type of person that lives with no regrets, right? Every experience, every moment has meant something. It's my perception as to, whether I think it was positive, negative, neutral, you know. So that's what I'm trying to get across to people. I've never been one that fit into a job, a 9 to 5. I just didn't remember life like that, and I watched my parents do it, but back then the cost of living in the world was different, so they could afford to get a house. We were middle class. We had everything that a kid could want with my daddy Chester, and he came on board when I was like, I would say maybe 5, because I had already started kindergarten. Anyway, he was the best man that ever crossed my path. And so he's my dad in previous lifetimes and this one too. You know what I mean? Because I've researched some of our past lives together because I went on a journey to see who the people were that I chose to be in my life. Because I believe that we have sacred contracts, soul contracts. We see our lives like Carolyn Meese says in her book, right? You have an opportunity. You have free will, even as a spirit on the etheric, right? So you have a opportunity. You get to see your contract, right? That's why I did that video where I was so pissed because my contract had been swapped by the Orion Council on some sneaky shit that I found out. And then I had a freaking mimic twin flame that, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Bullshit. Waste of time. Total sucked up my energy. Oh, I need this. Oh, can you help me with this spiritually? Can you do this spell? Can you do that? Are you able? How do I? Mm-mm. And I was pissed because that was 25 years of my life going back and forth with that stupid shit. Never lived together. but always kept figuring out, trying to figure out what it was supposed to be. And I learned real quickly what it was supposed to be. Nothing right now. Absolutely fucking nothing. My time is worth more than that right now. But, so, saying all that is just to give you some background that I've been through some shit. And I've had some jobs. And my most favorite ones were in the funeral and cemetery business, right? Because I loved helping people not suffer on top of their grief of losing a loved one and having to make financial decisions if they didn't know what the person wanted. Because there's a list of questions I got to go through. Because I got to peel the layer and figure out what we're going to do, what kind of service life memorial are we going to have to, because I believe that's what it's about. It's about the people that you met and what you did while you were here. That's why I say, remember who you are and what it is you came here to do, because no one else can do what you came here to do. Unless you're an NPC and you're just here taking up space. And there's a lot of those too. But I saw, let me tell you about this one family. Okay, first of all, they don't give you really good training. So I mismarked opening to and I put her on the wrong side, and I marked out where she was supposed to be because he was still here. And they go, no, it's just like when they stand at the altar. I was like, well, I didn't know, and nobody showed me, so I had to call him and apologize. I was horrified. Anyway, this one young sea star, I think she may have been in her early 30s, 31, 32, 33, right? Mom's passed away. She's the only one in there by herself making decisions. Didn't really know what, and is buying out of guilt because the rest of the family's not there yet, right? So she has to make all of these life decisions because nothing can move forward until we have something in place. And the longer it takes to have something in place, the longer your loved one's on ice in the back, right? But we're doing the viewing and all that stuff. So at least we got to get there. And if she don't know, then she's going to believe whatever that funeral director is telling her, because the funeral director leads the freaking conversation. And then the cemetery family service counselor, who is responsible for, backing up the family, making sure that they are aware that there's free grief therapy. And, I'm in there all about supporting them through this process because their loved one is, they're out of their body. They're out of this zone. They're happy. They're like, yay, I don't have to go through this shit no more. Right? It's us that's left behind that go through all the mind bullshit on the worst day of your life. If nobody knows what that loved one wanted. And I mean, you got to go all the way to young ones. I'm telling you, the hardest ones was this little baby girl. Oh my God. And this family, I'm telling you, I had to hold grandma back from jumping in that with her grandbaby. And I had to hold her strong and keep her here and let her know that her life matters and that it's okay, that it's painful, that your loved one is gone. Before they even had a full life. This is one of the most difficult things about being an empath. So, that was my worst one. Because we stood graveside. We made sure the family was okay, that there was water, because it was hot as fuck in Georgia. And cold as you know what in Virginia. So they got blankets in the winter and water and fans in the summer, for the ones that did it for outside. And I'm telling you what those families went through compared to the ones that had their arrangements and all they had to do was sign paperwork. Give the authorization, schedule the day, make sure everybody can come in and everything else, plan the life celebration if it's going to be at the funeral home cemetery, because I was at one that had both in Georgia and just the cemetery in Virginia, right? So, but my reason for being there was helping those that were here afterwards to deal with the grief and the guilt of what decisions and if they were right and everything else, and letting them know that their loved ones are okay and that you had to make expensive thousands of dollars if you had nothing in place and you knew nada, right? And they make sure they take you to the grind. They're there to get you to buy the most expensive package out of grief, because mind you, you're in here 1 to 3 days after the passing. 1 to 3 days, and you're having a meeting making these decisions for your loved one. So parents, think about that and what you're doing for your children or whoever is planning it. Sometimes I had this one poor lady, and she didn't have nobody. She didn't have no children because she never married. So she had no significant other. The only thing was she had her neighbor who was a friend. And she just wanted cremation because no one was going to be there. Can you imagine? So I say all that to say, I have done family planning services, helping people know that there's grief support available. I've been a family service counselor for over 5 years. That's just with cemetery and funeral families. That's not including family and everything else, right? And I have dealt with my own family deaths and crossings. First was my grandmother when I was about 15. I remember telling her that I just learned how to drive. And then she was gone before I even got my license. That was the first one. That was hard. She was like my second mama. But then my daddy Chester, which was hard. And then my Aunt Paula, which was equally difficult. And then my Papi Marco, and I couldn't even attend that one. I was just a mess. I was also in Virginia. But so I've done some things. I've experienced some things. And I don't want you to suffer on the worst day of your life. Let's make sure you got your paperwork right. If you already have plans, do you have everything you need? Do you need to make plans? Do you need to get a family planning guide together? We can do one online. Quick, right? And then make sure that your loved ones know what your wishes are. And then you got to protect everyone, right? For when you're here and when you're not here. And no one wants to talk about this. No one. That's why I got out, because it's sales focus and nobody wants to talk about dying. We're the only culture who does not respect and honor a crossing of a life or a soul and leaving their vessel behind. We don't honor that. That's where cremation came from. Is from those tribes that came before us, honored theirs. They cremated them, right? Or if you want to talk about the nobles and how they did it in mausoleums. That's why they have mausoleums, because it's considered an honorable burial. So, but that's for people who mourn the body and don't connect with the soul on the other side. So I was the bridge, right? I've also done estate sales so we can help set up the plans. Okay, everybody come in, take what you want, because they may be in one state and you in another, and y'all don't want none of that shit except little memorabilia. Come get that. Get the valuables. I know how to value things, because let me tell you, my next door neighbor, past Miss Helen, rest in power, but her daughter was about to some, you know, precious things that had a lot of value. So that included jewelry and, antiques. And she had a trunk that was amazing, that's still like brand new from the 1920s. You know what I'm saying? So I can help all the way through. So all you got to do is grieve and stay in it so that you can get through it, because everything else is taken care of. You get to, have your moments and your beautiful memories, instead of, oh my God, I hope I did the right thing for grandma or auntie or mom or dad or sister, brother, neighbor, nephew, niece, child. It can happen to anyone. It's not something that you plan for, I mean, nothing that anybody prepares for. They just want to, you know, act like it's not going to happen. But their selling point is why wouldn't you think that something it's going to happen either sooner or later, and they take advantage of that. So I don't want you to suffer on the worst day of your life. Okay? So get at me in the comments, and let's make sure that those are left behind can grieve and have pleasant memories rather than bad ones. Okay?